Now it became clear that Saudi Arabia decided to respond much more harshly to Iran's drone war. This Wednesday, April 1st, 2026, the Saudi move is already seen as part of a regional shift. Riyadh established military cooperation with Ukraine, received air defense specialists, and joined the race for a cheaper, faster, and more effective response against drones. Iranian Shahed drones are already disappearing from the Gulf sky, and the advantage they had to intimidate, overwhelm defenses, and hurt the Gulf economy is starting to evaporate. This happened because the pressure became unsustainable. On March 27, 12 United States military personnel were injured at a base in Saudi Arabia after an Iranian attack. At the same time, energy facilities, ports, ships, and export routes in the Gulf came under constant threat. Reuters itself recorded images and reports of an attack on the Ras Tanura hub in Saudi Arabia and the Babco refinery in Bahrain. This is where the main point comes in. The Strait of Hormuz connects the Gulf to the open sea and remains one of the most vital passages on the planet. And Saudi Arabia alone accounts for 38% of the crude oil flow that crosses this strait. When Iranian drones attack or push the region into chaos, it's not just a military dispute. That's why Saudi Arabia made the move that draws attention today. Instead of relying only on traditional interceptors, the kingdom signed a defense cooperation agreement with Ukraine and opened up opportunities for practical training conducted by Ukrainian specialists. According to Reuters, more than 220 Ukrainian technicians and military personnel were sent to the Middle East to guide local defenses against drone attacks. And part of this work took place precisely in Saudi Arabia. And Riyadh wants to turn real war experience into an immediate shield to protect bases, cities, and energy facilities. And how does this work? The logic is simple. The Shahed drone was dangerous because it forced the defender to make a cruel calculation, spending a very expensive missile to shoot down a cheap target. The Ukrainian response was to create light, fast, and much cheaper interceptors. Reuters describes the steam model from the company-wide Hornets, capable of flying at up to 280 kilometers per hour, costing around $2,000 or less. The Shahed, according to the same report, costs between $20,000 and $50,000. This is where the equation changes, and Iran's economic terror starts to lose its strength. This point helps explain why Iranian drones have evaporated in the political and strategic sense of the title. They haven't ceased to exist, but they are no longer the nearly unbeatable weapon that was instilling fear, causing attrition, and inflicting losses. When the defense starts shooting down the swarm with cheaper means and on a larger scale, Iran loses three things at once: surprise, economic pressure, and propaganda. Not coincidentally, Zelensky stated this week that the agreements with Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar were historic, and they revolve precisely around air defense, military production, and protection against drones. There is also a political reason behind this shift. Gulf sources told Reuters that Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain do not want just a temporary truce. They want to permanently weaken Tehran's ability to use missiles, drones, and the Strait of Hormuz itself as leverage. That's the reason behind all this mobilization. For these nations, it's not enough to survive today's attack. It's necessary to prevent tomorrow's blackmail. This puts Saudi Arabia in a negative position, even more firmly on the side of those who can practically neutralize this threat. In the end, what happened is straightforward. Iran tried to turn cheap drones into a tool of regional intimidation. Saudi Arabia responded by seeking technology, training, and doctrine to crush that advantage, swapping expensive defense for smart interception and military cooperation. And Iran's old advantage with its Shahed drones begins to build a new one. They lived